yeah, that was the video that we created at the very beginning when we came up with the idea of Timepiece, and we asked people around the world to send in videos of skills that they'd like to learn or that they'd like to teach someone. And we got over 100 videos. I mean, some really dodgy, weird ones, but it was really interesting and quite fun to do. But I'm going to explain kind of how the idea came about. So most of you probably know about Calais. The jungle was called the jungle, it was known as the jungle, but it's a refugee camp in Calais where Alex and I met, and in front of the screen, and volunteered, and we met a lot of, we made a lot of lifelong friends there, and we were meeting people who were living in squalor, really bad conditions. And we started working for grassroots organizations out there. And Alex is going to explain a little bit about what we learned from that experience. Don't go too far.
So I'm Alex. I met Charlotte when I was in Calais in 2016 and was based on the ground there for 9 months. A lot of you guys probably would have seen the press, which is a lot of bleak imagery, lorry drivers, smugglers, and it's always zooming in on like the really negative aspects of what was happening there. And I don't want to kind of play down the atrocities that were happening, but there was this other kind of element to what was going on. And I think one of the things that really stood out really strongly for myself and for Charlotte was a sense of community which existed within the camp. At its biggest, there was 10,000 people, and there was over 20 different nationalities who had self-organized into a community where they worked and shared and did things together. In this community, they built their own kind of microeconomy. So people, instead of just being kind of refugees, or how that kind of mass term was used, you have people who are hairdressers, neuroscientists, pilots, lawyers, academics, like every profession you could think of, those people were existing and living in that camp. And that kind of really struck a chord for Charlotte and I that this label really didn't do justice to the breadth of people that it was kind of trying to group together. So one of the things about Calais, which was also unique, is the UNHCR and all the big aid organizations didn't exist and operate in the camp. So that meant that it fell down to grassroots actors and the residents of the camps themselves, so the displaced communities, to self-organize and help each other. So what we noticed and really stood out was this kind of sense of collaboration, that no matter where you came from, you all got your hands dirty and you all did stuff together. And this enabled people to have real human interactions and operate on a bit more equal playing field rather than this hierarchical understanding of like, I'm here to help you. It was, we're building a shelter together. And I think that was something which really struck a chord for us.
So at the time, I was living in Russia and I'd made already friends in Calais, one of which is here. This is Ali. So he was a chocolatier in Syria. And he, amongst many others, would call me, because they had my number, when I was in Russia, being like, you know, where are you? I've reached the UK, or I've reached, you know, Paris or Brussels or wherever it was. And I don't know anyone. It's really hard to meet people. People look at me funny when I try and smile at them. You know, can you help me out? And so I started linking people myself. So I knew people in different cities, and I'd call them and say, could you meet my friend Ahmed or Ali? And they would meet up and help them sort of set up the life themselves. If they had, you know, minor problems like where's the local, I don't know, petrol station, or I need to go to a cafe or something, it was easy for them to find with a friend, you know. And they were mainly my family members or friends who would help out. And actually, you know, most people didn't have someone to call. He was one of the lucky few who knew a volunteer who'd been in Calais. So it was a little bit easier for this guy.
So what Charlotte kind of recognized and we did is that in Calais there was a sense of community and people working together, but in the UK, although there is a proliferation of like amazing refugee support services and organizations working to provide basic needs such as like housing, legal support, and also kind of some mental health things. We met some guys earlier doing that. There wasn't really an opportunity for refugees to connect with locals in the same way that existed within the Calais camp. So it was really hard to kind of make local friends, which kind of jumped out to us.
So then we did a bit of research. And we found that, not only were refugees feeling quite lonely, we have a few examples here, but one of our friends, Ahmed, said that the only person he could make friends with was a homeless guy. He was the only guy who would speak to him. No one else wanted to. So he became increasingly isolated. And then at the same time, we had the first Minister of Loneliness, who was appointed in the UK. And so we knew that there were also, locals, like the person at the bottom, I don't know if you can read it, but, there were people who say, no, it's really hard for me to just make new friends once I've sort of not lost, but the other ones have moved out of the city, or, people get married, kids, never go out. So they were saying it was very difficult for them as well. So I thought, okay, well, the refugee crisis has, in my head, 3 stages. You've got the crisis at the beginning, which is like the war or global warming that's pushing people out. And I thought, I'm not going to try and solve that. So then there was the middle bit, which is the, the sort of movement of people, the journey. And then you get the final bit, which is really not the final bit. It's almost the beginning for a lot of people when they have to set up their life for themselves. And that's what we decided we were going to focus on. So the need really was to focus on integration. And this was a way of, when you tackle loneliness for locals and refugees, you also deal with, helping people with mental health issues, and you also overcome, fear of other people, and kind of dissolves the prejudices that you build up over the years. And also, we wanted to be not a patronizing kind of thing, like help your local refugee. We wanted it to be a mutually beneficial thing on an equal footing, giving agency to people who've just arrived. So we thought, okay, so what can we do based on what we know? What can we do what kind of solution can we come up with? So we knew that all refugees have smartphones, the majority anyway, as did locals. We knew that people were using online platforms, especially if they're kind of shy. People were using Tinder to, meet people, to go on dates. But obviously we were thinking we want to link people without it having a romantic element to it. There was a language barrier issue. A lot of people didn't have money maybe to cross, to take public transport or whatever. We needed it to be flexible around people who work 9 to 5, who can't just, run off to a refugee camp and help. So we thought, okay, what can we do? And that's when we came up with the idea of building a mobile platform, which is what Alex will go into.
So Charlotte was saying, we had this idea to develop a mobile app, which you can see the kind of wireframes of here. So in 2016, I think about now, we started working on researching, talking to locals, talking to asylum seekers, talking to refugees, and trying to understand what were the things that people were looking for and how we could bring that together in a centralized way, which would be free and really easy to use. So what we kind of came up with this idea of a platform where you could connect and find other people in your area who have similar interests or skills that you would like to do. As you would see from the videos, some people are offering quite serious skills, financial modelling, while other people are saying, I can speak a little bit of Italian. So it wasn't about you being a professional, it was just about you having an interest. And what we discovered from the research was that people needed this common ground to motivate them to come together. So as if you just say to someone, go and meet this random stranger, you're like, absolutely not. You need the motivation. So for us, this is where this idea of skills and activities came into play. During 2017, we started developing a mobile platform. Caveat, 3 of us who were working on it had no experience in building apps before, so it was learn by doing, learn from scratch. It was a really exciting experience and journey. And in autumn last year, we launched this as a beta version. So a beta product is an early version which isn't available in the app stores, but it's one that you send people a link and they download and you have it in a closed environment. And we used that with about 50 people in London and saw that it was a really nice way for people to kind of connect and join up. However, due to our kind of general naivety of how long these things take to build, we realized that people had started hearing about what we were trying to do and were wanting to join and connect and meet people faster than what we could do in terms of building the application. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how we pivoted later on, but Charlotte will tell you a little bit about the community building we did on the side.
So we wanted to build a community while the app, the techie, tricky side was being developed. So we started hosting events. So we had, this was Iftar, this was during Ramadan. We had museum visits. I'm going to try and get through these. So we took them to the Museum of London. We hosted workshops. See on the left, we had people come together to make wallets. What else did we do? We also went to, I don't actually have a photo of it, but we went to the opera, and I mean, even most people didn't understand what was going on because it was all in Italian, or was it German? It might have been German. But like, I mean, I didn't know what language it was in. It was great, but we had, you know, people from all over the world there. No one really spoke the same language. No one understood what was going on, what people were saying on stage, but it was amazing. The reaction we got was really lovely. And then we also decided we didn't want to just do group meetups, so we did one-on-ones as well, and we had people call in explaining their interests and the kind of person they are. And we linked these guys up, and Alex will tell you a little bit about the couple in the middle.
So these are just some snapshots of the one-to-one meetups we organised last year. In the middle we have Temu and Debbie. I met Temu when I went to one of the free language classes which is run in London. And he'd been in London for 3 months. He's from Ethiopia. And he'd been kind of going online trying to find any kind of free activity that he could go to kind of meet people. As an asylum seeker, he wasn't able to work or partake in education, so his opportunities to connect or meet people in his community were really slim. I connected him with a language class we were at and was at that point looking for people to be on our beta program and get involved in the platform, and he was really excited. So he kind of came on board as one of our early users. And then the following week I gave him a call to check in, see how he was doing. And unfortunately, he was saying to me he really loved the language class, it was great, but it had cost him £7 to get from, you know, beyond Stratford into central London as a return ticket, but he only has £5 a day to live on, so he couldn't do that every week. So he was saying to me, I really want to go back, but I can't afford to leave my area to meet people. Do you know anyone who lives out my way? So we went on our little database and put a shout out, and Debbie kind of put up her hand and was like, oh, I live around the corner. So we're like, cool, would you like to come meet Temu? And they connected well over a year ago now. And what's really lovely is Debbie was recently widowed and she used to work as a nurse, and out of bizarre coincidence, Temu was also really interested in becoming a nurse. So Temu is now learning about the nursing industry and what he needs to do to kind of get into that field through talking to Debbie. Debbie's been learning Ethiopian cooking, and we occasionally get these kind of WhatsApp photos from them being like, here, this is new cuisine I've learned. But what's been really wonderful is, despite the kind of difference in background, age, experiences, they've managed to forge a friendship based on kind of common interests and have kind of supported each other through that journey, and they're still friends this day. So I think for us that's a real demonstration of the importance of enabling and creating these connections for people.
So also, just as a side note, at this time each of us had a job, full-time job, so we were doing this kind of alongside our other jobs, and I was usually very rarely in the country, so it was quite difficult, and we had more and more people email in. We had over 2,000 people saying, you know, they want to go to these events, but it was just becoming increasingly more difficult to host and organize it. So we thought, how do we make this like scalable? How do we do it around all our time? And we started organizing these speed friending events, which seemed like quite a fun way to connect people and have more people turn up as well. And we host these every 2 months, and we usually partner up with another organisation. So one of them is called Say It Loud. It supports a lot of people from the LGBTQ community who've arrived in the UK. And we also, you know, we do these games, but we also serve food that a refugee has made, and we find refugee chefs through an organisation called Turn, who help refugees set up businesses. So it was quite a collaborative thing. We've had 4 or 5 ones now?
For the 4th one's tomorrow night, so if you're in London, let us know.
Yeah, come along. And so far, these have been probably the most successful meetups, because I think it's just much easier for people to get into it if they don't have to be with one person that they're meeting up that they don't know, because you have to switch every 5 minutes. I don't know if any of you have been to speed dating, but it's similar concept. So yeah, so then now Alex will explain where we are today.
Yeah, so a little bit about, we've kind of talked a bit about our journey, and we kind of see what we're trying to do at Timepiece is broken into 3 areas, and it's about connecting refugees and locals. In London, it's about using tech to try and find a scalable solution to do that, because as Charlotte spoke about, the 3 of us who are behind this, we all have full-time jobs, and it's kind of, you need to have an online tech solution to enable things to scale and to allow people to connect in their own time. You can't always be the kind of middleman connecting people up. And then also changing perceptions. So just to kind of, this is a quick recap of what we've done so far. So we've hosted over 16 different community events. Most recently, we now shift our model to mainly focusing on speed friending instead of the workshops, just for efficiency. We've had over 400 people attend, half of whom have been refugees and asylum seekers. Our community is over 2,500 people. That is scattered all over, that number is kind of all across the UK, and also globally. At the moment, we're focusing on London because what we've learned with building communities is you need to create a density in one area before you start kind of trickling out, because people want people near them they can connect up with. And what we're looking to do is see how we can start using online platforms, whether that's developing the beta app further, or what we've most recently been using is a product management tool called Slack, which is also used for community building, so we've been using that as an interim. And then thirdly, the kind of third and really important part of what we see we do is that through connecting people, we're trying to change people's perceptions both ways over who refugees and asylum seekers are and break down those misconceptions, but also of who the local community is. I know that no matter where you are in the world, every local community has like stereotypes towards that, and the only way you're going to overcome that is by having interactions across these community divides. So some of the ways in which we've been doing that is giving talks like this today about what we're doing, but also through podcasts. So we've done some podcasts with the Guilty Feminists, with Adam Buxton and the Global Pillage, and that's something where we're trying to do more of because it kind of breaks it out into more in the mainstream, so you're not just talking your echo chamber of people who are already engaged in working with refugees.
Yeah, stay tuned because there's more podcasts coming out, which are fun. I think we should do again just to see.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to see. Okay, can people who've moved city before in their life put up your hands? Okay, it's quite a lot. Okay, out of those people, keep your hands up if you found it hard to meet new people and make friends. Okay, a lot of very social people.
Very social this one.
Yeah, very
Come to speed friendly.
Well, I found it really difficult when I moved to Russia. I had to go to a bar and sit there and beg people to talk to me, and it was really awkward. So yeah, if any of you still have your hands up and live in London, come to one of our speed friends.
We've been taking notes today from kind of pace of progress that you guys beforehand with the fun interactions. Like this would be a really great way to organise a break at the start. So you may see some similarities tomorrow night with what we've got to say. But yeah, does anyone have any questions before we or no questions, statements? Disagree.
I'm fascinated in how you came together to do this, you know, as well as working full time. I'm just kind of in awe.
It was really challenging.
I kind of googled you as well. There's more of you, aren't there? There's a number of people involved. And just how that works in between all the other things that go on in your life.
Well, so yeah. So I mean, I guess I kind of came up with the basic idea at the beginning, and we were working non-stop together. And I said, Alex, she was the one organising everything in the camp. You know, if you lost socks, look for Alex. If you need to know how to deal with the legal system, look for Alex. So I thought, okay, she's someone who knows what she's doing, and I don't. So I went to Alex and said, will you join me? And then I had a friend who worked for the government in the UK, and she was really interested and said, can I help in some way? And I said, okay, but you have to put the time in because I know it's just going to be very time consuming. And she was just fully on board, and then we decided that whenever someone was abroad or couldn't do it, then the other two would take charge, and we just made it work that way. I mean, we really believed in the project, and we really did it because And it's kind of why we created TimePeace, because you only care about something or about someone else is if you meet the person and you understand where they're coming from. And so I really cared about my friends I'd made who were struggling. And that was the kind of drive that kept me going. I was like, well, I have to help Ali, you know, because he's got nobody. And I think it was the same for all of us. We just thought, you know, got to do something. But it's been hard. It's been really difficult, but still love it. It's still great.
And I think also like one of the things that we learned is when you have an idea, everyone wants it to be ready immediately, and then you suddenly get all of these external pressures of people being like, well, where's my app? And I'm like, oh, I'm trying. And I think one of the things that we need to learn was be a little bit resilient and kind of create our own boundaries and say, look, we're working on it. Unfortunately, we're not going to launch in the Cayman Islands next week like you want us to do, because not kind of where we're based.
That's actually true. We have people in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, emailing for it to be launched there. Very crazy.
Yeah.
But it was kind of really managing your own expectations, because everyone comes to you with these amazing ideas and opportunities, and it's just about kind of saying, try and focus on the one thing that you want to do really well. So that's where we've kind of reined back and tried to focus just on speed friending and kind of set your own pace about doing things and try not to feel guilty that you're not doing it as fast as you want to. Because also, everyone's got a balance.
We also each have our individual skills. So like I'm a journalist primarily, so I'm a photographer and filmmaker, so I can use that to make, you know, films and do reports and things like that, and then and be more creative. And then Alex was doing marketing before, so she kind of knew, she's quite creative as well, good with managing people. And then the last girl, she works for the government, and she's very, you know, what's the word? Yeah, pragmatic and project management kind of style. So, you know, you just use what you have, really.
Any other questions?
Oh, keep going.
Is access to smartphones an issue?
So not really. I think everyone seems to this idea that they're quite shocked that people have a smartphone, but smartphones are kind of pretty prolific now, and a lot of the people we were meeting when we were in Calais, you know, we would be working there and someone comes in, they'd be like, oh, big mushkila, big problem, and I was like, what's happened? Like, how can I help? And he was like, my phone's out of battery. I was like, you stand there, no shoes, no jump. He's like, my phone's cut out, can you just charge it for me? Yeah. So people were more concerned about running out of battery, because for them, a lot of people, it was their only way of communicating with home. So WhatsApp is, you know, the kind of central piece of communication, or Facebook is how they kind of stay in touch with everyone, and also Google Maps for understanding like where you're trying to get to. So a lot of people were already using that as part of their journey. So for us, it made sense to look for kind of a digital solution rather than necessarily an offline one. That's not to say that everyone has a smartphone in the stock, but there is a lot of grassroots organisations that are handing out phones or topping up people's mobile phones. So it made the most sense for us to kind of slip into that space. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you guys for having us.